What's up, y'all? It's ProdByFredo, and today I'm gonna be teaching y'all how to flip a sample for not only a Detroit type beat, but for any type beat. Let's get it. So I'm a real big anime nerd, whatever. So for this beat, I'm choosing a 100x100 sample. I've already used the 100x100 sample before. I think I've used this one before, but just for the sake of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it, show y'all how I do it. So now that you got your sample in NFL, the first thing I really like to do is what I call find the beginning of my loop and the end of my loop. Now, this is not particularly gonna mean you're gonna use this whole thing for your sample. You might chop it up and only use sections, but this will be able to get us to stretch this sample into the BPM of our beat. So I'm gonna go ahead and find the beginning of my loop real quick. All right, so once you got your beginning and your end of your loop and you've cut those tails off and dragged it back to the beginning of your playlist, what I like to do is either stretch it out to the 9 or the 5. The way I gauge that is solely based on which one it's closer to. So if it was right here, once I cut it, I'll stretch it out to the 9. If it's right here, I'll stretch it out to the 5, and whichever one is closest to. So right on this one, we're gonna stretch it out to the 5, but just so you make sure to do this, put it to stretch. Resample, it's gonna pitch your sample up or down, and the pitch might not be like perfect as far as key to put your drums, your 808s, your other instruments that you want to put on the sample if you do want to put other instruments on the sample. So I'll just make sure to put it on stretch, and I'll change the pitch myself. And so right now I'm actually figuring out little points or listening for points in the sample that I can turn or flip if I don't want to just make it loop, just as it is. So I'm looking for little points that I could flip. And so I found like kind of a rough draft of how I want my loop to sound, and here it is. But obviously I want to fill in these blank spaces just because that's something personally that I like to do. If you want to leave blank spaces when you're sampling or chopping things, that's completely up to you. But there's a bunch of different ways you can fill in these blank spaces, either with other parts of that sample or just dragging each part out like this. And in my case, that worked, but sometimes when you drag it out, you'll have parts of the sample that just doesn't sound right in the loop. So you might have to use different parts of the sample, if that makes sense. So now that I have my sample, I'm almost done with flipping this. Now I have to figure out what pitch I want it to be in. And a really good way to determine that is first, drag your favorite 808 or any type of bass that you're going to be using in the song and find a root note. Find the original root note of what you have right here. So I'm going to play it, listen, figure out what note. So that's where my 808s will hit on this sample. But honestly, I kind of don't like working with my 808s in this range. So what I'm gonna do is first turn this up a little bit so you can hear it. I'm gonna figure out how much do I have to go up to get to a nice root. If you've made it this far, make sure you hit that like button and comment your favorite food to eat. That really helps out with engagement and helps me be able to put out these type of videos for y'all. Let's get back into it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that means I just have to pitch this up 700 cents. And it might sound crazy. We can really test out how well that sounds just by throwing this 808 down real quick and listening to it back with the 808. All right, so we found what pitch we want our sample to be in, or what key we want our sample to be in. Now, what we really need to do is mix our sample, because this ain't it. So the first thing I would really want to do is use an EQ. Now, usually I use a fab filter EQ, but I'm gonna use a stock EQ for y'all today. And what we're gonna do is use a low shelf and just bring down some of those lows. Bring down some of those lows in the sample. You're barely gonna be able to hear it, but it's gonna make a huge difference when you start adding in a lot of low end bass drums or other instruments. Another thing I like to do, if the sample is really if the sample is really like ear piercing, that's gonna be some of our highs. So this sample really does feel like it's piercing my ears like crazy. So I will bring down some of those highs. And a trick that I actually learned from mixing and EQing vocals is turning these bands all the way down to like 5% with your scroll wheel, and then listening to your sample back with them up and kind of scrubbing through and finding sounds that just don't sound great. So right here. And just bringing it down ever so slightly, that's just gonna make that sound less harsh. After you've EQ'd your sample, pretty simple EQ. It probably looks complicated, but after I've explained it, it's the most simplest thing ever. You could literally copy this right here and put it on all of your samples. You're gonna wanna put a reverb on your sample. And this is just gonna give it some more space, especially if you come to a part where the sample just stops. It won't stop like this. It'll have a little more of a tail on it. So, but you don't want it that high. Just put a basic fruity reverb on it, bring it down to here, and make sure it stays there. Fades out a little bit. And after you've done that, genuinely, you're done with your sample. There's a lot of other things you can do, like put chorus or other different filters, like a low pass, high pass filter. That's all up to you, but this is just how I flip my samples. And the next video, I'm gonna show y'all how I make my sample beats. If you enjoyed that video or you found it helpful to something that you've been figuring out to do for a while, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and actually comment what you would like to see me teach y'all how to do next. Honestly, if this video gets 5 likes, I'm gonna drop the second part. So just hit that like button, man. I wanna drop that second part for y'all. Peace out.